Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at Etrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Timbren Severe Service Suspension Enhancement for your rear axle on a 2020 GMC Sierra 2500. Now this is how it's going to sit when it's installed, and this one is a press-in style. Now these just simply replace your factory jounce bumpers, and yours may be a bolt-in application, but all of these are going to be no drill. They just simply take out your factory jounce and add this height. And they're all going to live about an inch above the rear axle. And what that means is you're going to get this to initiate a lot quicker. So minimal amounts of sag is going to push this against the rear axle, and this is going to start working. Whereas before, your factory jounce bumper clearly is quite a bit shorter, and there's a lot of sagging that's going to happen before it starts working. Now they're all made of an AON rubber, and it's a hollow rubber spring, and what that does is allow the suspension to still flex, and it's also going to be progressive, so it becomes more rigid as you add more weight. So that way if you have a light load, it's not getting too firm, but as you add that weight on, it's going to be able to hold up to that as it progresses. Now because we only have that inch gap, it isn't really designed for someone that's just going to occasionally tow, because as the suspension works, it is going to kind of hit this. This is more set up for someone that consistently tows something or has something in the bed of their truck. So if you have an in-bed camper, or if you have a salt spreader on the back of your truck, or if you have a designated tow rig like we have here, and all you do is tow your fifth wheel, it's going to be a great option for you. Now, if you are just an occasional tower or occasionally put loads in your vehicle, you might want to look at something that's a little less severe than these. And there's plenty of other options available from Timbren that are really great. And these are just, again, a little bit more heavy duty for just your occasional tower. Now, not only does this help support the weight of the load that you have and just kind of give you a better ride, it also has a lot of added benefits that you may not notice right away. And that's going to be the fact that you can reduce a little bit of the sway. So if that wind gust comes, this is going to help settle that down. It's also good for uneven loads. It also is going to take some of the shock out of the trailer, keeping that a little bit more stable as well. It's also going to allow the vehicle to not sag as much, keeping your headlights down instead of pointing up. You're also going to get more steering feel, better braking, and overall it's just going to take away the stress that's put on the suspension. Now you may be saying, what about airbags? And airbags are a great option. You get a little bit of adjustability with the pressure that you put in the bags, but with airbags does come a little bit more extensive of an install, plus you're routing wires, and you're gonna have to fill those up whenever you need to go. And that's not the case here. These are no maintenance once they pop in. It's a short, quick installation, where airbags can be a little bit more tricky. These are going to work every single time. You don't have to worry about leaks because it's rubber. It's just going to work just as your factory jounce bumper did. So here we are hooked up to our fifth wheel, ready to hit the road. And while this is a pretty heavy duty truck, it's rated for a decent amount of weight. It really still squats quite a bit. You have a lot of weight just resting right there, and the suspension is going to do its job, but also it's going to be pretty stressed while doing it. And that is going to kind of make for a little bit of a maybe not a comfortable towing experience, and that's something we're hoping to fix. And before we get our Timbrens installed, we are going to take it around our test course, and we're going to be going pretty slow here, but we're going to be hitting some bumps, and that's really going to kind of see if we can get that suspension to really tighten up and see if, you know, where we're lacking. And that's where those Timbrens are going to shine, I think, is it's just going to supplement that rear suspension a little bit more. And right now, don't get me wrong, this is a heavy duty truck, but the suspension is very tight in the back. So as we hit these bumps, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot there. It is soaking it up, but it does feel like it's already maxed out and just not really a whole lot of movement left to go. So hitting these bumps, we're getting some chucking naturally. Checking the steering feel too, that's something that we might notice, as this is going to kind of help that truck reduce that squat. A lot of times it's going to get pretty loose in the front. So far it feels pretty decent. We're going to hit our bumps again, and it does kind of just, it feels as if the rear is just kind of just slouching, and that's because it is, it's sagging, and so it kind of wants to hesitate. It feels like the truck is really dragging, and there's a lot of weight behind us that's getting our truck to kind of squat. But if you raise that up with those Timbrens, it's going to really kind of stabilize and kind of just pull a little bit better and just kind of feel like it has a little bit more oomph, and that's just suspension doing its work. So because the Timbrens are going to fight that sag and really kind of compress and work as hard as they get compressed, it's going to fight against that sagging feeling and just kind of give the suspension in the rear a little bit more oomph and make it feel like it's working a little bit better. So now we're going to unhook our fifth wheel. We're going to take our truck in the shop, get the Timbrens installed, and then we'll come back, hook it up, and see the difference. To begin our installation, we're going to need to remove our factory jounce bumpers that we have, and these are just pressed in. So a few different methods. Sometimes they'll be a little bit trickier than others, but if you need to, you can put a little soap water solution in here. A lot of times you can just put a screwdriver or something that you can use as a pry bar will work, obviously, and just kind of get into the jounce bumper and then just pry back, and it should kind of just pop out. Now, if you need to get a little bit more room, and it might make it easier for installation, you can raise the vehicle from the hitch, and that way you get a little bit more space here. So to kind of get that suspension unsprung might be a little bit helpful. If you're doing this in your garage or on your driveway at home, you can put a floor jack on the hitch of the vehicle, and this is, again, going to just unspring that suspension and really open it up. Now make sure, since you are lifting the rear of the vehicle, that you chalk your front tires. That way it's not rolling as you lift. Now with a little bit of room here, I can kind of just pry this back, and then it just pops out like that. Now raising the suspension and getting it to be unsprung also just helps getting this in place. As you can tell, there's quite a bit of space difference. And also, to get these to pop in, it is just compression. Sometimes you can pry them in and they'll pop in, but another method is raising the suspension, putting this in place, and then putting some blocks of wood or something to kind of just be solid. And that way, when we lower the vehicle, it'll pop it into place. So it is worth raising up the vehicle to be able to get these in. Once you have both your jounce bumpers removed, I'm going to go ahead and just spray the inside again with some soapy water solution just to kind of help slick it along here and kind of pop into place. You also want to make sure that it's nice and clean in here, and that's also going to just allow it to, again, slide in, because if you're dirty, it's going to create resistance against this. I'm going to just kind of try to press this in place by hand. It's already kind of seating pretty well, which is going to be nice because it's going to hold that in while I have something under here. And I could use a pry bar, I think, as well to kind of get this to pop into place. But if not, as I mentioned before, you can put some blocks under here, and then when we lower it down, that's going to compress it into those cups. So I kind of press those in, and they're holding in place, and then I put a 2x4 underneath it. And so now I can lower the rear end of the truck down, and that's just going to allow these to get pressed in nice and easy. So once you lower it down, just make sure that it's sitting nice and flush with the cup, and that should be perfect. So at that point, we can go ahead, remove our blocks or whatever we use to press this up, get our truck back down, and test them out. I can tell immediately that the amount of sag as we lowered our fifth wheel on is quite a bit less. That reduction in sag is really coming from these engaging so early. You can see they're already fully engaged. It's resting against the axle. So let's take it out on the test course and see how it handles. So immediately, just driving a little bit, I can already tell a difference. And it really comes down to it being pretty firm, but not uncomfortable. And it really just gives the truck a whole lot more oomph feeling. It feels like it's super capable. And really, we didn't change the power. We didn't drastically change suspension, except for the fact that we're engaging quicker and these Timbrens are really doing their job. So over the bumps, this feels great. The truck feels poised, ready to go. It doesn't feel like it's lagging behind before, where it really felt like it was dragging, almost like a parking brake was left on, and that's not the case anymore. Steering feel has gotten better. That is definitely noticeable. It's heavier, which is a good thing. More feedback. It doesn't feel like it's just kind of skating in the front. So overall, again, it is a little bit firmer. So for comfort reasons, obviously, that's not really what you're going for, but you're getting a lot of just added feel of the truck, really getting the most out of the suspension. And also, I got my braking back, I got my steering back, and overall, it's just a much better towing experience. The truck just feels like it has a little bit more behind it. Now, as I'm making a long sweeping turn in the parking lot, I can definitely tell a difference as well. The truck just feels more planted, and it's able to take these turns without kind of just feeling like it's bogging down, trying to accelerate out. And again, it makes this truck beefier than it was before. It just has that sense of poise, and it's really, really comfortable towing this now. And long term too, The benefits you get, not only a safer driving experience, but it's not going to wear your suspension out. This is going to supplement what your suspension's doing without having it really be at its limit working hard. This is going to hold that up and allow the suspension to really use the geometry that it was designed for. And that was a look and installation of the Timbren Severe Service Suspension Enhancement for your rear axle on a 2020 GMC Sierra 2500.